Good morning, everybody. I hope this works out. I'm actually on a bus today, and it's very noisy, and I can't get the mic to work on the phone without picking up the other noise. I could probably deactivate some of the microphones on the I have an iPhone, but I think this is going to work, so let's see how it turns out. So, my name is Greg. I'm a tutor in New York City, and I tutor for a variety of things, including New York State testing, elementary school homework, and the high school admissions tests. And I'm heading out to do something today, and while I was on the subway, I got a message from a kind of excited student saying that they need some reading comprehension tips. They're going to take the SHSAT, Specialized High School Admission Test for New York City specialized schools, and their problem is when they read the passage, they forget it, even though they just read it, and they have to read it multiple times. And I guess the problem is they didn't. It was a small message, but I guess the problem is that there's not enough time to reread it, and they wanted to see how to address that. They did well in the math, if I understand what they're saying, and they actually do well in the English. So, what to do? What to do when you run into problems like this? So let me see if I can kind of touch on that. And this person believes that one of the issues they have is that they read slow. So they read so slow that they're not processing what the information is. Unfortunately, schools should teach these things and have addressed these things, but they don't. Which is why having a tutor is a great idea. I know I'm biased because I'm a tutor, and this may sound self-fulfilling, but there's a lot of tips and suggestions and alternate viewpoints that a tutor can offer to a student that a regular teacher can't. There's often 35 kids in a room. Teacher has to follow certain requirements. They're usually not allowed to spend more time on something, and they have other responsibilities after the end of the day and so on. So it becomes a very hard situation to deal with. So I just jotted down a whole bunch of things. So if you're running into a problem on the reading comprehension part, and this will follow through with the state test as well. Okay, I'm gonna pause this for a second because I got disconnected. Hopefully it's reconnected. So what I'm going to do is offer a bunch of tips on how to resolve some of the reading comprehension problems. The first, as I was saying, was just to calm down. One of the problems is you can psych yourself out and get your head all screwed up about what could be a minor problem. Okay, so the first way to address a major testing problem is psychological. Just get your head in the right place. First of all, you should practice a lot. And at least be comfortable with the rigor of the test and the way test questions are worded and things like that. Okay, so let's try to get on a fast track here because I don't want to lose the connection here, and I don't want this to be an hour-long video. So the first thing you want to do is when you're reading a passage is don't read the passage first. Okay, if there's a title, look at the title. Okay, try to understand what the title is and what they're asking you about. The second thing to do is, if there's any illustrations, look at all the illustrations. Read the captions, see what's going on in any photos. If there's a table, try to understand the table. And by the way, you should be doing this in the math questions as well. So if there's a table, see what's going on. If there's a chart, try to figure it out. If it's entertaining, like it just might be a bunch of balloons or something, then somehow maybe there's a party in the passage or something. So you're trying to get a context, the main overall context of what the passage is. Okay, so you're not going to read the passage. You can look for the title. You can look for any captions if there's any. And by the way, in the reading comprehension part, that often does not have a title. So, but it will have one often in the revision part. So we don't know what happens every year. So this year they may add a title. Okay. The title can help for the main idea as well sometimes, but if they don't give one, you have to compute that through other ways. I might do another YouTube on how to figure out the main idea of a passage. What we have here is we need to fight a compromise. For most students, there's only 180 minutes to take the test, and you can't read the passage 50 times. You can, at most, you can really only read it twice, and you really only need, you don't, you have to read it once, but that's a tough thing to crack through. So so the first thing you want to do is read the title if there's one. Look at the captions and pictures and photos and illustrations if there's any. Could be more than one. If there's any, look for the author's name and see if there's any directions. Read the top level directions and read any, sometimes there's a little caption or an abstract before some passages. Okay? If that's the case, read those too. It's all important. Okay, the next thing you do is, you're still not going to read the passage yet. You're going to go to the questions and read what the questions are. Okay? You're not going to read the answers to the questions. You're just going to read the questions. Now, when you read the questions, you're not going to spend half an hour reading the questions. There might be 6 or 7 or 5 questions per passage. You're just too bogged down. You're going to spend too much time at multi-levels trying to comprehend everything. So you're going to go read the questions, and now you're going to go read the passage. And the thing about reading the questions is, if it says, like, when was George Washington born, as you're reading the passage, you're going to have that in the back of your mind. That's something to look for. Now, what often happens is, out of the 5 or 6 questions, you might only remember 3 or 4, okay? So that's okay, because you still have a heads up, okay? The next thing you do is you read the passage. When something seems significant, you're going to underline it or circle it. These are conventions and standards and things that people do all the time. Many students also like to take notes. This probably came about through taking the grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 state tests. However, you don't really have that liberty here. I had a student last year who tutored in the ELA state test who wrote a book. She wrote more than the actual thing. She'd get all the answers. Actually, no, she didn't. But in the New York State test, you can take, quote, all the time you want now. So she was able to do that. And I had to work with her to make her thought process more efficient, to work against that. Okay? So so what you want to do is just make notes. It could be a check mark, it could be circling something, it could be underlining something. I have another student who only underlines dates and names. So in it not just that the question is going to be about dates and names, but that it somehow gives him a mental milestone to remember what that passage was about. So if it was about Babe Ruth, the famous baseball player, if he underlines the name, then he's making a mental note that this passage is about this guy, who at the time was the home run leader. Okay? And it's just, and this, by the way, that's an associative way of memory, of retaining stuff in memory. And in this case, we have short-term memory and long-term memory. In the case of the passages, we're not concerned about long-term memory. We're just concerned about instant gratification, short-term memory. Okay? So we're going to underline stuff and things like that. And remember, we're going to calm down again. So when you finally read the passage, at the end of the passage, this is what I like to suggest. And it's not necessarily addressing the student who emailed me this morning, but write down the main idea of what you just read. Okay? It shouldn't, and you're doing this, and it's a snap decision in 2 seconds. What's the main idea? You're not writing a paragraph, you're not even writing a sentence. Just write as a phrase, the shortest, most concise phrase you can get about what the main idea is. So what you've done is captured the essence of the thing. Okay? I should probably do another YouTube explaining how to figure out what the main idea is. But at the moment, just do your best at that, because we have to break discussing these things up into pieces. So the next thing you do is, now you finally read the passage, and you have to do the questions. So before you look at the answers to the questions, try to answer it yourself. See if you know the answers to the question. That way you can see which one will match it. And if you don't know the answers to the question, go look it up. That's what the passage is there for. Most passages are only a page, some are a little longer than a page, some are shorter than a page. So you often have the opportunity to go look the answer up. Okay? So you're going to read the question, look up the answer, and then see which answer matches it. Now, a problem with the SHSAT is that we have this concept of the best answer. So it may turn out that all the answers are valid. In some cases, that's not true, but in some it is. But in enough cases, all the answers are fine. So you're trying to use find the most precise answer, the answer that matches the tone and spirit of the article, the answer that they ask specifically about, because they may ask something specific that could influence which of these best answers is indeed the best. Okay? There's also the process of elimination and stuff like that. That often one of the answers is totally ridiculous. So in past years, the SHSAT had 5 answers, which gave you a 20% chance for each choice. Now the SHSAT only has 4, which means your chance of getting the question right is now 25%. So if you rule one out, your chance is now 1 out of 3 is 33.33%. So that's a good chance. So what often happens is there's another option, another answer that when you read it a little deeper, you decide it's not really it. And then you're often left with 2 that are pretty close. And it often comes down to one word that determines the difference between something like that. So what you want to do is look at that and see which one of those really matches the thing. And again, you could refer back to the passage if you want. And you're doing this with snap decisions. You only have about a minute to answer every question. So you can't spend 15 minutes trying to find out the answer for one question. You have to do an answer and move on. Okay? Let's see, what else did I have? The other is a problem I see very often is a student is not answering the question that's being asked. They interpreted it differently. Or it said what is not the case, and they ignored the word not. So that's a classic silly error. But also there's non-silly ones where the student gave some level of ambiguity to the question that didn't exist in the first place, or they just totally misunderstood it. So this is an art and a science, and this is where some of the practice comes in. The more of these questions you answer, the more better you're going to get at it. But at the same note, it's about being concise and precise. If you're freaking out, if you're anxious, you're not going to be answering the test questions properly, because your brain's going to be racing and all over the place. So again, you want to breathe, you want to focus, you want to read the question clearly. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with underlining parts of phrases and keywords in the sentence of the question itself, so that you're slapping your face, you're slapping yourself in the face to alert your brain, oh, this is really what the question is. Okay? Let's see, what else do I have? Remember also that when you're reading passages and answering questions about them, it's not about you. It's not about what you know about the subject. It's only about what the author wrote. Okay? So if you use my example previously about, say, Babe Ruth, they don't want to know about Mickey Mantle unless the author talked about that. They don't want to know about the current 2018 home run hit leader or something like that. That has nothing to do with the passage. Now, that said, you have to know stuff about the real world, because if asking about home run leaders of, say, 1950, you obviously have to understand what baseball even is. So, but that's kind of parallel knowledge. That's not knowledge you're introducing into this. And this can be hard sometimes, because let's say you're a real baseball nut, that you know a lot about baseball. And in fact, the author might even say something wrong or ambiguous. You can't introduce your own thoughts about this. And if you do, it's just going to make everything confusing. So you have to get a hold of yourself and only focus on what the author is saying about it, including whether the author states any facts or opinions. Okay? Because that's the author's facts and opinions. Whether they're really facts or opinions or not, that's what the passage is saying it is. So sometimes kids get all bent out of shape because they're having a problem with something that the author is saying. But the truth of the matter is you only have to understand what the author is saying, even if the author is wrong. If I told you right now there was a red ant jumping up down on top of my phone, well, that's what I'm telling you, and then you have to answer questions about that, whether there really is a red ant jumping up and down on top of my phone or not. Okay? Another thing kids do is take notes. But again, I referred to that earlier, and you have to kind of make a compromise whether that makes sense or not. Okay? Hopefully this talking is not... so I'm going to just mention who I am again, because I don't know if this intercom is going to mess you. My name is Greg. I a tutor who teaches mostly elementary school, grades 3 to 8. I focus and specialize on the New York State test and New Jersey State test. I also specialize in high school admissions processes and high school admission testing. For instance, the SHSAT, the TACHS, the TACHS, the Catholic High School Admissions Test, the Bergen County Academies, BCA, Hunter College, and throughout New York, New Jersey, Long Island, things like this. I also advocate for children, so if you have problems running into problems in your school, I can meet with you and your principal, you and your teacher, even the district offices and so on like that. I have a lot of knowledge about how the school system works. I work with a lot of teachers. I've also taught at places like NYU and Columbia, so I understand the bureaucracy at schools and things like that. My email is GregsTutoringNYC @gmail.com. Okay, so the speaker seems to be gone. So the last thing I want to say, because I'm going on 20 minutes, I hope this live stream even works, is that I have this notion of the full something. So I like to tutor to the full child. I like to crawl into my students' brains, see how they're thinking, and then decide where their strengths and weaknesses are, and what really should be the concern. Okay? And in some cases, the concerns I can detect and I think should be solved are different than, say, what a parent is. Most parents are very interested in getting a top score and things like that. Yes, that's a legitimate concern. I'm understanding. My concern is making sure the child feels secure, making sure that they're on board with what's going on, and not that their mind is totally blown away, and that they're not a puppy trying to perform for their parents, and that they can start enjoying the education process. Okay, so on that note, I'd like to say the last tip I have is to answer questions to the full test. So this means everybody's not going to be perfect in every part. So you might be an expert in the grammar part, or you might be an expert in the English part, or you might be an expert in the math part, or you might be an expert in the grid-in problems, or the multiple choice math problems. So that's your strength. Use that to your advantage, okay? Especially given how the SHSAT is graded. So if you can't resolve your reading comprehension problem, but you believe you're almost going to get a perfect score in math, then focus all your attention on the math, including while you take the test, but certainly while you're practicing and so on. So what you're going to do is juggle that. So because the notion is, like, let's say you're taking English, math, science, gym, etc., etc. And let's say you have an art class and you're not good in art. That doesn't mean you're a failure as a person, and it doesn't detract from the skills you have in math and science and English. Okay, so and that's the way to get through life. Life is compromising. Life is a roller coaster. So what you need to do is figure out how to efficiently juggle your strengths and weaknesses together. So we have a case here where a student's concerned about English comprehension, the reading comprehension part of the SHSAT, and I'm almost telling you maybe it's worth ignoring that part and focusing on where you're really strong on, because at this point I could have helped you from a few weeks ago, but now the test is in 5 days, so that's cutting it close. So first of all, I hope all the tips I just gave are helpful to anybody in this particular, but certainly the student who emailed me this morning. But the truth of the matter is, even if all those tips help you and you improve your English score, you should still use your strengths and weaknesses for you. Okay, that's really important to always do, and it's an overall general strong strategy that if I was professionally a computer programmer, and I'm lucky that I can do all parts: coding, analysis, design of the structure of the program, debugging, customer support. But some people can't do all those parts. You can't always be a jack of all trades, and that's fine. So the key is to be able to write, in the case of, say, a program, write the code efficiently, so that somebody, if I was not a good debugger, would have the opportunity to do that for themselves. and to be a team player and a team member and a kind person and a good citizen. Those all count just as much. All right? So I hope this was useful. There's more tips than I just gave, and it's helpful to have somebody, a tutor like me, behind your back and going through some examples live to really hit home what I'm talking about. Okay, in the meantime, I wish everybody good luck in the SHSAT, and I'm going to tune out. So I just want to say I did a walk and talk 2 days ago. Yesterday I did a sit and talk, and this is a ride and talk. Okay? So I was considering doing an Ask Me Anything today. I might still do it, maybe on the way back from where I'm going now. I also have some more general administration and logistical tips and so on that I might offer. It depends how tired I am or what I have to do with my work and so on. So, as I usually say, peace out, people.